Trump said they cheated and things like that, what did he really mean?
So first of all, thanks for having me. This is my very first interview with anyone from India, so it's um, quite the occasion for me. I'm very excited for this, and I apologize for any little ones that you can hear rustling around in the background as I've got my 4 children running around the house. But Trump is claiming that the Democrats have cheated in this election, and what he's referring to is the fact that there was quite a bit of excitement around Trump this year and very little excitement around Joe Biden, which is who Trump was running against. Now, the way that elections work in the United States is everyone goes to vote, and then the two candidates are trying to win something that is called a delegate. They're trying to win the electoral college, which means they're trying to get delegates. And so the popular vote doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many people vote for Trump. It matters how many delegates he gets. And so that's why you've been seeing these graphics of Trump and Biden trying to get to 270. Whoever gets to 270 first wins. And what that means is the size of the state, Texas, for example, where I'm from, has a certain number of delegates based on the population. California has a certain number of delegates based on their population. So when Trump wins Texas, he wins those delegates. Now, what he is saying is that once you have the election, then the states, which Texas is a state, California is a state, these are provinces inside the United States. When Trump, after those are tallied, it then goes to the courts and the states have to declare who won their state. Well, that doesn't happen until like mid-December. But a lot of times during these elections, you will have the news media go ahead and declare who they think the winner is. And normally it's not a super tight race. They're not at risk very much by saying, hey, we think Joe Biden won, except this is a really tight race. And Trump is saying, hey, wait a second, there's still a chance for me to win in these states. Now, this happened before when Bush and Gore were going against each other, and one other time previously, way back all the way when Harry Truman was running. So this is not something that is new. It's what is happening is I believe that the mainstream media knew that Trump was going to win. So what they've done is they've declared Joe Biden the winner so that when Trump ultimately is declared the winner, there's going to be civil unrest in the streets. Like there's going to be, they're going to release Antifa again and Black Lives Matter and all these people into the streets to create chaos because they're going to feel like the election was stolen from them. The Democrats are going to have this narrative that Trump, even though he lost, Trump has now stolen the election and will not leave power. And this has been something that they've been pre-programming us with in the news for the last, few months. Even in the debates, you had the moderators, the people who were in charge of the debate, asking Trump if he was going to be willing to step down if he lost. Well, he danced around the question because he didn't think he was going to lose. And he didn't lose. In my opinion, he won by a landslide. And what's happening now is the Democrats they're bringing in ballots that were cast after the deadline. They're bringing in ballots that were inappropriately counted. They in certain locations that would have been pro-Trump locations. They were giving the people improper pens and markers in order to fill the ballots out with so that their votes would not end up counting. They did this massive because of COVID. This whole COVID deal was a push to be able to do more mail-in voting, which is highly susceptible, which is at great risk of being fraudulent, okay, of creating fake ballots and sending them out to people. So what's amazing is that all these ballots, the ones that were cast late, the ones that were mailed in, the ones that were inappropriately filled out, they're all going to the Democrat side. They're all going Joe Biden's way. And so when people who were watching on election night, they saw that, hey, it was a close race, but Donald Trump was ahead in all these important states. He was ahead in Ohio, Georgia, Pennsylvania, all these states that overnight, Joe Biden ends up getting ahead in all these well after the election deadline. It's very typical for all votes to be counted on election day. And this whole deal, this whole election, because they knew they couldn't beat Trump in a fair election, is because they want to create a nation of civil unrest. They want it to look to the rest of the world like the U.S. is in turmoil, when we're not. We're actually highly supportive of our president. When all is said and done, I believe it's going to come out that Trump actually won in a giant landslide, so a giant victory for Trump. And it's all going to play out over the next few weeks, because Trump's taken it to court, and that's kind of the next step for this process.
They are expecting something civil war or some kind of things.
Well, I think they're trying to create some civil unrest. They're pinting up the two sides against each other.
When the election was near, they did call for the National Guard in some states. Yeah, right?
Yeah. So it's because of how heightened everything is, and because in the U.S. everyone is highly divided. I didn't see any instances where the National Guard was actually had to be put to use, but they had them there in case there were riots. And if the Democrats had lost,
it's like they are expecting the riots to happen.
Right. Yes. And they're creating they're wanting people to, they're basically programming people to expect it to happen, right? Oh, of course there's going to be civil unrest in the streets because Trump.
They just want this to happen. It's like,
yes, absolutely. It's a way to bring down the United States from the inside, and that is definitely their goal.
Yes. What will happen if Trump wins in this lawsuit? Will this change the election results?
Yeah. So, contrary to a lot of people's belief.
Wait a second. I don't know which media said this, but there are videos in YouTube. Big US-based media just said there won't be any change even if the lawsuit goes in the way of Trump. They just mentioned that in the title. Nothing is gonna change. Job is the president.
Right. So something that people have to be careful of is trusting what the media is saying, because the media has an obvious bias, or they obviously want Joe Biden to be the victor here. And so anything the media says, you have to step back and evaluate, because what always happens with elections is it always goes to the court. Now, it's not always this visual. There's not always this much circus around it, but it always goes to the courts, and the courts declare the winner. Now, normally the courts and the media are saying the same thing. However, in this case, I do believe that the media is going to try to stick with Joe Biden all the way and try to create as much unrest as they can. Now, what happens is Trump's going to go to the court, and he's going to prove that there was voter fraud in probably every state. I've seen all kinds of stuff coming out, whether it be ballots being cast after the deadline, or ballots being brought in at 3 a.m., or people not being allowed to watch people count the ballots, which is a big deal. People are in these areas where people are counting ballots, they're not allowing Republicans or Trump supporters in to watch them do that. That's supposed to be something that's allowed by the Constitution. Highly suspect. If you're not hiding anything, then why not let everyone come in and see what you're doing? So it's all very strange. Now, what's going to happen is Trump's going to go to the court, and in my opinion, he's going to win his case. And so there's going to be a lot of votes that are thrown out in these states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia. And what happens when those...
They are all big states, right? They are all big states, right?
They are big states.
The results can vary the selections result, correct?
Right. Yes. So what happens is when those states get turned, Trump will be the president, because right now that, they've got Joe Biden with a certain amount of electoral votes. He's like around 280 or 290. He's going to drop to probably 260 or 250, and Trump will go well over 270 and be the president.
And this new result will spark something, right?
It will definitely spark something, because the media, just like the media is painting Joe Biden as the winner right now, they're going to paint Donald Trump as a cheater. And you're going to see a couple things. You're going to see a mass exodus of people
Mainstream
trusting these new.
mainstream
Go ahead.
wants Trump to be like a cheater, like things like that.
They want Trump to look like a Hitler or a Stalin or Lenin. That's what they want him to look like.
Media is like completely portraying everything in a wrong way. It's like completely biased.
It is completely backwards. Yes.
In one of the Trump speech, they just interrupted in the middle and said he's saying something idiotic, it's wrong, not right, and so, things like that. It's in
Yeah, absolutely. The media has become this lens, like it's almost like you put on these glasses when you're watching the media, and you're
100%
and you're no
biased.
longer.
100%
Yeah,
biased.
yeah, 100% bias. A lot of people get in trouble because they think they're just looking at information, when in fact they're looking at an interpretation of information, right? They're watching someone else's opinion. They're not watching unbiased information or evidence.
No one is watching the truth. They're just showing things what people wanted to see in their biased mindset.
You're exactly right.
And that's one another thing. Twitter just fact check the president's tweets. It's like
Yeah.
this may be wrong, this may be wrong. It's like 14 or 15 tweets are fact checked.
Yes, that's the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen. When all this was going down
uh,
on election night, Trump kept tweeting and tweeting, and his stuff kept getting censored and fact checked. And the whole fact check thing is just,
he's
it's totally crazy.
he's just sharing what's his opinion, what's in his mind, and then and the mainstream is like, no, he's like blabbering something, he's not correct. Here's what you should be learning, here's what's right, and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
He's still the president, right? I think they just
He's still
forgot.
the president. Yes, he's still the president.
If something like that happens in India, there will be like big changes. That media will be going down. Boom.
I think you're about to see that in the United States.
they I think they hate Trump like 100%. They don't want him in the office.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing to me that you from India can see that, because I know the only way for you to see what's happening is through that lens of the media. It's a good thing that
Uh,
you do have the ability to catch some social media that may be against that here and there.
yes, yes. I can literally see everything in the title of the videos. It's like everything is pro Joe Biden, and then when they mention Joe Biden, it's like a good thing. He's going to save something and things like that. When they mention Trump, it's like here's something he just said something stupid and idiotic. It's
Right.
just in the title itself.
Yep.
Even in the late night shows, the titles are like Trump is blabbering. He doesn't know how the
Hmm.
election works. They literally just spelled in the title. Trump
Yep.
doesn't know how the election works.
Yeah.
Also, there's another important question: how this will affect other nations? People in one
Yeah.
second, didn't complete this sentence. People in other countries, just like India and other elsewhere, they are like it's only in US and it cannot affect our nation. So we shouldn't care about that. It's just not our thing. So just skip that thing. It's like that. What should
Yeah, I think it's a big deal, because I think I think many nations follow the U.S. and what the U.S. does, and in my opinion, as U.S. being the largest and strongest Christian nation in the world, I think it's very important what happens there, because if the United States is a beacon of light for Christians around the world and it gets taken down, that's going to have um, it's like water. You drop a rock in the water and it ripples out. Like, it's going to have effects all over. And so I think if the US is strong and you have a good leader like Trump, you're going to have a strong, um, you're going to have many other nations in the world that benefit from that. An example would be Nigeria. There were Christians being slaughtered in Nigeria all over the place until Trump went there and met with the leader and said, "Why are you slaughtering Christians?" And it stopped. And I learned of that firsthand through a Nigerian buddy of mine. And I think there are many examples like that. I think that if I think that can be abused if you have the wrong leader, like a George W. Bush or a Bill Clinton. They can abuse that power, and that could be bad for the rest of the world. But I think Trump is, I think he's a responsible leader. I think he wants what's best for the U.S. And a lot of times I think with a strong U.S., it helps the rest of the world.
Yes, comparing to Trump, Joe Biden is like not a good choice. There are
I
literally.
wouldn't let Joe Biden run a McDonald's.
I saw like few videos right before this interview. It's like Joe Biden doing creepy things around girls. It's like something like that. It's a compilation actually. Here,
Yeah, he's a pedophile. Like, you see him
uh,
sniffing girls' hair and touching them.
it's
It's
yeah,
gross.
I literally saw that right before this interview. There's a compilation video. They just cutted everything he did and then compiled it.
So
Ha,
uncomfortable.
how is he even running for president when there are videos like this? I don't know.
I don't know.
He's clearly not eligible for something like that.
Yeah, clearly.
Also, there's another important question. Um, in the last Simpsons episode, in Treehouse of Horror episode 31, they just predicted this will happen. How are they predicting? And are they just blabbering, or they know this is gonna happen?
I don't know. The Simpsons is an amazing show. There's so many things that have been predicted there. 9/11, there's so much predictive programming with the Twin Towers in New York. They've done some flat Earth stuff in there. They've I saw a Simpsons episode the other day where Mr. Burns walks into the room and the map behind him is the election map, and it looks just like the map this year. And
Yes.
so I think there's too many coincidences for it just to be blabbering. I think that there are writers that work on The Simpsons that write funny stuff, and then there's the people up top that say, hey, you need to incorporate this, or you need to place this in the show, and they do it in a way, they make it funny. But I think there's too many coincidences for The Simpsons not for there to be something behind it. And how do they do it? I think it's because the same people that tell them what to put in there are the ones pulling the strings at the high levels of people who would decide to, spread a coronavirus and cripple the world economy and do it in a way that it's going to cripple the president of the United States. I think it's the same people. I think that's how the Simpsons are able to do it. Not every writer on the Simpsons knows what he's doing, but he's definitely following instructions from people higher.
People that people that are hired to the writers are saying to add this and this to this Simpsons episodes. At first, if we look, it will be like just like a comedy cartoon, nothing important. But if we notice and see that, it will be like connecting the dots. Few years ago, if you saw that, it will be like just like a comedy show, and then when you remember, it's like it's currently happening and it's on the news.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, this episode was just aired like a week ago, uh, just a week before this election happened.
Wow.
Uh, they also added the riot thing on the US falling down.
Right.
They badly
Right.
want US to fall down.
They do. They do.
Also, I think I forgot about the ballot thing.
Yeah, so there's something interesting going on with the ballots. So a ballot
Uh,
is just something that, go ahead.
uh, Trump supporters and others said there are ballot watermarks and things like that. But the mainstream came from nowhere and said these are all wrong. There are nothing like watermarks and things like that. And also they added, like they used to add, Trump supporters are blabbering and it's not right.
Right. So again, I think that's the same thing happening where the news media is trying to create this perception that a Trump supporter is stupid or they don't know what's happening, but the truth is that Trump supporters are actually digging and pursuing truth as opposed to just absorbing what the media says. So these watermarks, it's thought that all the legal ballots that were cast have watermarks on them, and that the ones that were created for the mail-in ballots, the fake ones, don't have it. And so it's going to be very easy to tell which ballots are real and which ballots are fake. I've heard 3 or 4 different people talking about independent uh, independent sources that they've heard that this is true from. Now, then you also have millions of people reposting it. So just because it's reposted doesn't mean it's true. But I have heard different people talking about different reasons why they think it's true. I've had some people send me some of their ballots that they were mailed that do appear to have the watermark on them. Now, is that the one that the people are talking about? I'm not sure. They're talking about like a non-radioactive isotope watermark, which sounds very complicated, but it's probably just
Yes,
something that you
yes.
can slide underneath a light and see whether it's real or not. That's
Sounds
what I
like
assume it is.
a military thing.
It sounds like a military thing, and people are saying that it was a military sting operation to use this election to see if the election process is actually trustworthy. And man, I don't know if it's true, but I pray to God that it is, because it will be a very easy way to see which side is cheating and which side is not. Because I guarantee you, any fake ballots that arrive without the watermark are for Joe Biden.
Most likely.
Hmm.
Uh, and about the Siri update, I think it's like yesterday, I guess. Few people called Open Siri and asked what's the age of our president, and others asked how old is our president. For both the questions, Siri just replied with Kamala Harris and her age. They
Hmm.
fixed this update after 1 or 2 hours, but there are lots of videos out there. What's this?
Yeah, so I'm not sure what all the hoopla, the uh, what all the excitement is about, other than I know that if Joe Biden was to get in, which he's not, but let's say that he was, I know that it would be the left's intention to replace him with Kamala Harris, because Joe Biden is just a name. He's an old guy. He can't
Yes.
even remember his own name sometimes. And some of the
Old,
speeches he gives are so uncomfortable.
old creepy guy who sniffs
Oh, yeah.
girls.
Yeah, old creepy guy who sniffs girls. Yeah, that's what he should have ran on. And the Kamala Harris, however, is younger, a little more with it, but she is left wing, liberal, highly progressive. It's her beliefs that the left really wants to push, and in my opinion, Joe Biden is just a puppet that they will eventually get rid of and usher her in as the president if we allow her to become president. But I'm standing strong that we won't let that happen.
Mm. There's actually something, I think it's 25th Amendment. If something happens to the president, vice president can take his place.
Yes, it has something to do with their mental capacity and
Uh,
whether or not they can still serve the country. And it's one of those things, like, it's good to have, but it's also highly subjective, meaning it's kind of a judgment call. And I have the feeling it'll be very easy for Kamala Harris to get the backing of the media when she decides it's time, and then the media will throw it out there and get the support of the sheep that live in America. And but I don't think we have to worry about it because I think Trump will be president and not Biden and Harris.
You're like 100% sure this lawsuit will be done?
I am 100% sure that Trump will be president for the next 4 years because there are many prophecies, even one from your country, about
my
Trump being a 2-term president.
From my country. Explain,
Yeah,
explain, explain that.
sorry, I forget the guy's name, but it was a prophet from India
Okay.
who said that Donald Trump would be a 2-term president. There's a
Like
guy named Kim.
continuously, he will be on president. Okay.
Yes, yeah, for 8 years. And there's also a guy named Kim Clement from New Zealand who prophesied in 2008, or excuse me, 2007, that Trump
Wow.
would be a 2-term president. And then another guy, last name Taylor, an American, who did the same thing. So there's lots of prophecies about Trump becoming president, and not just becoming president, but becoming a strong Christian leader president and doing it for 2 terms, being reelected.
Okay. Was there any Q post about this thing?
So, yeah, I mean, all the people the thing about Q is Q posts in code. So a lot of his stuff or their stuff is meant to, I think Q is used not only to inform people, but it's also communication between the Q team. So they have to speak in code because they can't let the other side know exactly what they're doing. So anything that people say Q said is usually someone's interpretation of the Q posts. Okay.
They may say it
So,
in a wrong way.
right. So there were people saying a while back that the internet was going to turn off for 10 days, but Q never said the internet was going to turn off for 10 days. He just referenced 10 days of darkness. We extrapolate, or excuse me, we deduced that might be the case. We thought that might be the case, but it wasn't the case. So yes, Q has been talking about civil unrest. He's been talking about COVID being a way for the Democrats to try to to keep President Trump from being reelected. So yes, there's been tons of Q posts about the election and how the Democrats were going to try to cheat. One of the things that Q was saying is that there were all these faulty voting machines from back in 2016 and that have been around for a long time that Trump got rid of. Now, since Trump got rid of those, the next push was to create this COVID mess so that people could vote from home, these mail-in ballots, because mail-in ballots are a lot easier to fake than someone going to vote in person. So that is something Q has been saying, is they were going to push COVID so that people would be scared to go vote in person, so that we'd have to do a bunch of mail-in votes. And I mean, China could be printing the ballots. You know, they could print millions of ballots.
Yes, there's actually a rumor that China is involved in this election fraud.
I have no doubt, because they want Joe Biden to win.
I don't actually remember the whole post, but they mentioned this. There's a big part of China's team. I don't know what they mean team, but they just want Trump to be out of the office
Yes.
for some reason. I don't know what's that about. Totally, only thing, and I understand 100% is that they hate Trump.
They hate Trump. Biden is a lot easier to control than Trump is. Trump can't be controlled. He also can't be bought. He's already a billionaire.
Okay, talking about QAnon and Trump. QAnon portrays Trump as a totally good guy, and he's trying to take out all the deep state and then clean the country and lots of things. It sounds interesting, but Trump did say some things like he's gonna use military for vaccination.
Yeah, so I right now, I think the Q stuff is legitimate. I think Q is a team of people inside the Trump administration that are working to drain the swamp, as they say, get rid of the deep state, get rid of all the
Yeah,
pedophiles and
yeah, they
Satanists.
also say things like trust the plan.
Yep, yeah, they're always saying trust the plan.
What's the plan, and what do you mean by cleaning the swamp?
Okay, so trusting the plan would be trusting the insiders in the government to get rid of essentially the Satanists and pedophiles that have taken over our government, the elite. It's to take them down. That's what the plan is. And so um, Trump saying things like he's going to unleash the military to help with vaccinations, he just means to help supply the vaccinations for people who want them. He's said many times that there's going to be a vaccine for those who choose to take it. Now,
So so he's not talking about mandatory vaccination.
Trump is not talking about mandatory vaccinations. In fact, Trump had COVID, right? Trump caught
Yes,
COVID
it's like 3 days,
and
I guess.
yes, and he took what are called therapeutics. He didn't take a vaccine. He took therapeutics like hydroxychloroquine, which is used in Africa and has been used there for 65 years to treat malaria. It's a safe drug. It's not. He's talked about how you would much rather trust some of these therapeutics than a vaccine that could kill you. He's been quoted as saying that, and so he said, "I took therapeutics, but I wouldn't call them therapeutics. I would call them the cure." So Trump is pushing these things like hydroxychloroquine and a couple others that are not a vaccine. Now, people are pushing for a vaccine. They want Trump to come up with a vaccine because most people want vaccines, right? And so he's had to create this. Now, when the vaccine comes out, is it going to be something that's terrible for people, the Trump vaccine? Because Kamala Harris said she wouldn't take a Trump vaccine. So now she's anti-vax, but it's only because Trump's coming up with it, right?
Yes.
So she said she would take one if the experts say, but she would not take the Trump vaccine. So it's my opinion that the Trump quote unquote vaccine is going to be some of these therapeutics similar to the ones that he took. I think it's amazing that he caught COVID. He recovered in like 2 days at his age,
Yes.
taking these therapeutics. He said his own words were, I don't see it as therapeutics. I see it as a cure because he got better. So Trump saying the military will be deployed, that is for distribution and disbursement. And I guarantee you, he's also saying that they will be dispersing these things like hydroxychloroquine as well.
He's not mentioning he's not referring to the mandatory vaccination, and he's not referring to the mainstream's version of vaccines. It's just
That
like
is correct.
just a normal medicine that we normally use, right?
That totally, totally. And
uh, whe- when I saw the post about Trump and the vaccination things, I thought he's supporting the ID 2020.
yeah. So there are people pushing that vaccine, but that is not the one that Trump is pushing. Trump, I believe Pfizer is the company that's working closest with Trump on the vaccine
Yes,
that he
yes.
wants to do, which is not the ID 2020 thing. And Trump, anytime he gets a chance, pushes these therapeutics over a vaccine. So um, I would say Trump is on our side still, even though he has said things like the military will be available to distribute the vaccine, but it doesn't mean he's going to force and mandate a vaccine.
He's clearly, so he's not on their side. He's not gonna
Correct. He's not.
he's not gonna
He's
mandate
not.
the COVID vaccine thing.
No, and I don't think it's lawful for anyone to mandate a vaccine, but you are going to see states that are run by Democrats try to do that in their state.
Mm,
It
during the last 2 days, I think in New York or something like that, they just recommended to mandate the vaccine. Did you see
Yes, they
that?
did, and yeah, it's disgusting. Like
Is
it
that on
is
New York?
100%. It's new. It's new. Yeah, it's 100% politics. They're just trying to scare people, and I want to say that it's almost 50% now. People saying that they won't take a COVID vaccine. It's somewhere between 40 and 50% of Americans that are polled say we won't take a vaccine, which is amazing because 2 years ago that number would have 90% of people would have said yes, give me the vaccine. But
Yeah,
I think the education is getting out there that these
they
vaccines are
mainstream
bad.
mainstream tried to fearmonger into getting the vaccination, and accidentally woke up lots of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what do you think about this predictions and things like that. Will this happen? Will there be a forced vaccination and riots in all nations? Will that happen?
I think with, Bill Gates and people like that, that's what their goal is. Their goal is forced vaccination for the whole world in an effort to control population growth. He said it himself. He said
Yes, it's still on
you know,
YouTube, I guess.
yes, it's still on YouTube.
uh,
I think that is the agenda, and they're going to do it through the United Nations as long as they exist. And I think as long as Trump is president, we're going to have a little bit of protection from it. That's why I think it's so important that he gets reelected. And again, not just for the US, but for the world, because Trump is going to be someone
yes,
who's going to stand there in the way of that.
whatever happens in US, the rest of the world will follow, right?
Yes. Yes.
Also, they are trying to collapse the dollar, I guess.
Yes. 100%. Yeah. I've talked about this many times, but the dollars in the sense of money, it doesn't actually exist. It's like inches. Okay. You can't go out and grab a few inches, right? You have to have something to measure in order to have inches. And that's the same thing with dollar. Dollar is like an inch in that it doesn't really represent anything because it used to be backed by gold, but now it's not. They just print more and more and more. So dollars just get worth less and less and less. And that's most paper currencies across the world. Inevitably, that's what happens is they end up printing their own money, and it gets worse, less and less. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to cripple people, turn everyone into slaves, make people where the only way that they're going to be able to feed their family is to work for the government and get the minimum salary that the
Yes.
government will offer. And so we need to rebel against that. Absolutely.
So basically, they just want everyone to take this ID 2020 chip thing, and also they want us to go cashless.
Yep. Yep.
By
And
that, by
that's a big push with COVID because they're going to say, oh, money transmits germs, so we can't do cash.
yes, by that way they can have like a total control over everyone. No one can
Total
escape.
control over everyone. I had someone in my family that was from Romania, and she escaped from communism, and they had a large farm there, had maybe 100 acres. The government came in and said, all right, we're going to keep 99 acres. That last acre is yours. And what it did is it created a giant cash underground market where everyone was paying with everything with cash. Like they had it stuffed in their mattresses and things like that. Currency, and will only honor what you have in the bank. So people went from millionaires to dirt poor because they were keeping their money out of the bank, and the government changed the currency on them overnight. And what happened, and that's communism. That's the left. That's what the liberals are trying to push in the United States, and it's a terrible thing.
Okay, I'm interested in what happened to her. Did she
So
file a
she made it
lawsuit? Or
over. No, she made it over to the U.S. and just started over her
uh,
life.
it's
She
like
got out of Romania.
100 acres. That's really big.
Yeah, yeah,
She must be she must be rich.
yeah.
Like
Well, she was, but the government took it. That's what people don't understand about communism is it's evil. There's nothing good about communism. In theory,
good
there's some good
things.
things about everybody,
They just
being equal.
whenever they talk say something like this, they just highlight the good things and say, look, it's a good thing, we should accept this without resisting. It's like that.
Right, right. But it ends up that everyone just ends up being slaves to the government and the elites.
So there are like lots of truth channels, they are claiming that this whole new world order thing will be happening in like next 5 years or so. What's your opinion about that?
I think as long as Trump is in, we've got a chance to fight them. And so I think we'll have at least 4 more years, and it'll be highly dependent on who the next president of the United States is beyond that. And God is in control. So we're on God's timeline and God's calendar. So I think he's given us a little bit of extra time. I honestly feel like he's actually pushed the rapture back a little bit to allow more people to come into the harvest, to allow more people to come to Christ. And so I think we've been given this time, a little bit of extra time. And yeah, I'm excited to see what we can do with it. So I think as long as Trump or someone like Trump is in, they're going to stand
Uh,
and protect us.
Literally, we are in the last pages of the Bible.
We are, yeah, we are in the last pages. You're exactly right.
uh, God, what's gonna happen? What will you say to someone who is just starting to look into things like this?
I would say, don't trust what I say. Don't trust what anybody says. Don't be a passive absorber of lies. Be an active pursuer of truth. You have to have a good versus evil mindset in this world. Like, we live in a dark world, and you need the light in order to shine it in those dark corners. And in my opinion, the light is Jesus Christ and the Bible, and it's going to help you along the way, because it allows me to see these things on the news and on social media, and I can weigh them against the Bible and decide if they're true or not. Being a Christian, being a follower of Jesus Christ, it also gives me the Spirit inside me, which it gives me it's called the Spirit of Truth, and it allows me to recognize truth when I see it, and to recognize lies when I see it. And whether you take that advice or not, you should at least agree that there is good and evil in this world, and that if truth is good, there is going to be an evil war against truth. So you have to be diligent with the information that you take in, and you have to research it, and you can't just trust authorities. You have to question them. That is our
So,
job, is to question things.
so you are saying stop being a sheep, stop following mainstream media, and look for yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, me just telling someone to stop following the media probably isn't enough for someone who's following the media. So that person needs to just start questioning it, start seeing if they
Yeah,
see
like
an agenda with it.
most people get their information from the media. They believe in newspapers, they believe in TV, radios, and everything like that. So
And
they think the media doesn't have any biased mindset. They think they are telling what's really happening in the world.
that person who sees the world like that doesn't understand how deep the evil is. They don't understand that evil has gotten into everything. It's infiltrated everything. It has worked its way into every part of life, and the only way to stand against it is to be strong, and to not embrace it, not bring it into your life. People need to be a beacon of truth. They need to be people should look at you and say, hey, there's something different about that guy, and that should be the Spirit of truth and Jesus Christ inside them. So the Bible says to test all things and to hold fast to that which is good. And there aren't many books that in the religious areas of life that say things like that. I think a misconception about the Bible is that it's just one book. It's not. It's a collection of 66 books written by 40 different people over 1,500 years of history. The
Yes,
Bible's
about that. Whenever I talk to an atheist or someone like that, they just say, "Bible is just another religion, another book. Why should I listen to this, or why should I follow, or why should I check that book?"
Sure. Well, if anybody has a question about that, my channel on YouTube is called Woke Town, and I have a video called The Reliability of the Bible, and it's a talk that I do, and it is a very important talk, and it shows you that the Bible is actually the most historically accurate and reliable collection of books in the history of the world. Nothing stands up to it. Nothing is even close. And someone may hear that and say, well, that's a pretty wild claim. Well, it's true, because when you look at the numbers statistically, the Bible is superior to any book ever written. It's been proven. not only does it prove itself, but the extra biblical historical accounts prove the exact same thing. There are more references to Jesus Christ in history than there are of Alexander the Great. Okay. And the Bible stands up to scrutiny. It asks you to scrutinize it. So I'd tell anyone to go in there and challenge it.
Bible did predict the ID 2020, I guess. It's
Yes, absolutely. The Bible is absolutely predicting that. It says that in the Bible that in the last days, people will hold back the truth in unrighteousness. So it's talking about people not allowing the truth to get out. That's exactly what's happening right now. It talks about a group that is bent on world domination, a one world government, the new world order. It talks about all that in the Bible. And again, this thing was written. It's not a science book where they update it every year. This thing was written and finished
yes.
almost 2,000 years ago, and it hasn't changed, and it's still the greatest book of all time.
The prediction about the description about the mark of the beast just perfectly matches the ID 2020.
It's in Revelation right there, the mark of the beast. And I'll send you the link to the video I was talking about, the reliability of the scriptures.
Okay, I think we talked about most important things. So at the final part about the lawsuit, how long will it take for the government to end this thing?
From what I understand, every year, no president is officially declared the winner until like December 14th. So we've got at least a month until the official declaration. Beyond that, Inauguration Day, which is when the president is sworn in as president, is like January 15th. So that's another month. Now, I'm betting that it's all wrapped up sometime in December. Now, but that doesn't mean the media will stop their assault, you know. So
Yes,
I think
they will be name calling everyone who supports Trump.
Yep, I think Trump will be declared the winner in December, and then I think the riots and all that stuff will happen well into January, February, and then we'll all get it under control. And who knows what the Democrats will try after that? We had COVID this year, we had the impeachment, we had now the election. So who knows what they'll try next?
So basically, we have to get ready for everything.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Actually, I saw a meme like a few weeks ago. It says, read the Bible because we are literally in the last pages of that book.
Yeah, it's great. That's great. I saw a meme of a guy dressed up like a knight, you know, with armor on.
Yeah,
and
on horses.
Yeah, on horses. And it said me getting ready for 2020. And then it said 2020, and there was an arrow that had gone through the eye hole.
His helmet got I think, and then the arrow was like inside his head.
Yeah, it is like that big.
It was super funny. It was fun, and it was
all fun. Thanks, man.
Yeah, it was all fun and games until we see everything literally happening before our eyes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, thanks. This has been a great interview.
Okay, bye. Thanks for the interview.
All right, man. Let's talk soon. I'll send you that link.
Okay.
See ya.